So I'm going to make sure this, my nose is okay. So it's Ray Schutte. I'm going to talk about food security.
And you're with?
I'm with P-Patch Trust. So I should start out by saying P-Patch Trust is a non-profit organization whose primary mission is to acquire, build, preserve, and protect community gardens in Seattle, and we're the #1 advocate for P-Patches. P-Patches P-Patches are urban gardens, and that whole structure is a rather interesting thing. Urban gardens are probably the very reason why we still have organic food, and they preserve the taste, and they preserve the methodology. When the rural community vacated organic, the urban gardens kept it going, and they preserved all those things. Today, we have over 2,000 gardeners in the city of Seattle, on 74 different P-Patches. We're going to build 20 more gardens in the next 3 years, which is going to add a measurable number of additional people to that. And that provides a place in communities all around Seattle where people can go and raise their own food. There's nothing more secure than your own food out of the garden. Myself, I've had to buy lettuce 4 weeks out of the last 3 years at the supermarket, and I found that real offensive, and it was a very bad frost that bit me in. And I believe things died of drought, so I won't let that happen again. I now have bottles of water stored to water when it freezes in the ground. So we won't have that going on again. It does a couple other things too. There are 22,000 pounds of fresh produce donated last year to local food banks. It's all organically grown. It came out of P-Patch Gardens. That's an amazing amount of fresh produce that goes into people that can't afford to go to the local market and pick up organic produce. And we dovetail in really well with the local farmers and all of that kind of stuff. In Washington, we define sustainability as within 600 miles of the source, and that is because we have such a narrow climate on this side of the mountains, okay, and such a narrow climate on the other side of the mountains, and so we got to go to that 600 range. It's not as bad as Alaska. Okay, I mean, Alaska's like really, if you can't grow it and preserve it, it's not there. So we at least have that ability to garden year round in the Northwest, and then by pulling in our brethren from around us, we can make that sustainable ability in terms of a distance. So a part of that is not only sustainable but security. Food security has to do with a lot of things. One is the quality of food. It's one of the most important things to me. I will probably have to die a couple years early in my retirement in order to afford my habit for eating good quality food, as opposed to buying something that's chemically produced. The difference between a piece of lamb from Lopez Island and a piece of lamb from New Zealand can be up to $7 a pound. That's a commitment that you make that you have to figure out how to afford. Or if you can't afford it, then you have to eat something besides lamb. But I really like lamb, so I figure I'm going to die early. If you run out of money, just die. It's in the meantime, So anyway, that's I think a really important aspect of this whole movement is that we know where our food comes from. It helps us appreciate that. I'll go back to say this: a lot to have to do with taste. Taste has a lot to do with nutrition. Things that taste good, if you test them, are going to test and be more nutritionally sound than something that tastes bad. Okay? The difference between a fresh hued carrot out of the soil and even one that's sat for 3 weeks in the organic bin, getting to the market in that refrigeration, is all the difference in the world. And the lettuce that I give to my worms at the end of every week is probably fresher than the lettuce people are buying in the local market. So the freshness to me is a part of the quality, which becomes a part of that whole security thing. Is it needs to be fresh. The fresher it is, the more nutrition it is. The more nutrition it has, the healthier I am.
Now I have a question. Does every P-Patch have a giving garden? I noticed down here there's some garden beds that are marked food bank, and I don't know if that's the master gardeners who are gardening that, or if it's the P-Patchers here.
It's our food bank garden, our giving garden. Interbay had probably the very first P-Patch with a giving garden outside of Picardo, which was originally nothing but a giving garden. Okay. But this garden gives over 5,000 pounds of produce between those gardens that are gardened for the food bank, and for out of individual plots, all surplus produce goes there. So we give about 5,000 pounds a year out.
And that's not all zucchini, right?
It is not all zucchini. No, it's not all zucchini. There is zucchini, there are beets, and there are carrots, and there are all kinds of goody things, but it's not all zucchini that comes out of here. Every garden, virtually every, there may be one or two more gardens in the city that do not have a giving garden, that when something becomes available, possibly make one, in spite of the crush of wanting to garden. All new gardens have at least one garden that's a giving garden that's gardened by the community, for the community. And we left that aspect out at this point, but one of the most important things about P-Patches is neighborhoods and communities. This is where people get to know each other, and they get to know each other on a really equitable basis, because the soil is never down for you. How much money you have, how you look, or whatever, it's going to treat you the same. The weather's going to treat you the same. And everybody gets treated rather equally when they walk in. And so it's a place for people to get to know each other, and it's a place for trust to build, and for people to lives to come to each other. It's replaced what the neighborhood school used to do for us. The neighborhood school used to create neighborhoods for kids, and then they just took the neighborhood school down to do something else with it, which they deemed was a greater social good. I'm not sure it was or wasn't. And as an end result, nobody could see the end result at the time. So I was one of the first who was out there to support all of that. But I've come to realize that neighborhoods are really, really important. It's difficult to rebuild a garden is one of the ways in which that happens.
Well, Ray, I really thank you for your time and all of the leadership you've done for the P-Patch community. I know you've been on the board for 10 years,
Yes.
And president for 8.
Since I was on the board, I joined the board and became president in the same year.
Wow. Well, thank you for your commitment and all of the leadership that you've